Hi, we're Team 12, and today we'll be presenting evidence 1. Our evidence 1 would be about the problem situation, that is the contradictions of dual heritage nation when dialogue stops. And our main question that would be guiding the discussion is going to be, how should a modern state be configured in order to ensure the integration of cultural diversity and creation of a real climate of equality and equity? So our team is conformed by me, Valeria Rosado,
Ramiro Rivera,
by Laura Hernández,
and Emiliano Mollinedo.
We each took a role into this evidence. Ramiro and I would be the indigenous communities in Mexico.
Emiliano and I will be the international organizations.
And I will be representing the Mexican government.
Okay, and we're about to start. So how should a modern state be configured in order to ensure the integration of cultural diversity and creation of real climate of equality and equity? We, as indigenous communities, don't feel like our rights have been respected over the years, and now most of our territory is being covered by the government since they want to use it as deforestation, and they're taking our territory away. We have to fight enough to get water, to get some resources, and we are not have respected the rights that we should have.
us as the indigenous people in Mexico, we feel that there is a lack of formal recognition from part of the government of our territories and our natural resources, which these people, all people have lived for many, many years. So it is a thing that needs to be respected. And we also need to have help from the government in terms of health, education, and many aspects of our life that needs to be changed.
As a part of the international organizations, the International Work for Indigenous Affairs has different programs which involve the recognition of the discrimination that has been happening with the indigenous groups, mainly those from Chiapas, from the EZLN, and it has been recognized that their most unique challenges have been mostly related with the implementation of the language in education and justice systems, for which a project has been managed and supported by another financial institutions that have the budget to continue with the program, since several organizations do not have the financial capacity to continue as much projects as other financial institutions. And from the part of the climate change, it has been collected in either podcasts, documentary films, or publications that can advocate that most contributions coming from indigenous people are the most efficient type of activities and values that can be implemented in the fight against climate change. This has also been reported and supported in the International Indigenous People Forum on Climate Change, and will continue to be negotiated and presented in order to achieve a greater goal.
And representing another organization in Guerrero called Tlachinoyan, who works to defend and protect the collective rights of indigenous people, such as economic, social, and cultural rights, civil and political rights, women rights, and especially in the case of legal representation. But our organization has also faced for trying to stand for these rights, has faced harassment and aggression to the staff, and it has face that for all the years that we have been in this organization. And for that also the government has not helped us. It's very difficult to partnership with the government and to have that help, because indigenous people are a minority in our country, and we feel that the government doesn't really see them as an important cultural heritage of our country.
I think that although history of our country has been filled with a constant fight between indigenous groups and the government, we just said it, like resources, recognition, and participation. We cannot deny the several steps we attempt to recognize the rights of indigenous groups by the government that have been taken place. For instance, in 1992, Mexico became a pluricultural nation by amending the Article 4 of its constitution. Nevertheless, we cannot deny this, that there was still some ambiguity related with the rights, responsibilities, and roles of every ethnicity in Mexico. It wasn't until the first day of 1994 in which the National Liberation Zapatista Army, Ejército Zapatista de Liberación Nacional, or ECLN, seized the town of San Cristobal de las Casas and 9 other small towns in the southern state of Chiapas, putting the indigenous group people of Mexico in the international struggle. It's worth to be mentioned that during the same day that the ECLN was making a national scandal with their armed forces, the Mexican government was focusing on signing the North America Free Trade Agreement, the NAFTA. It seems that the effect of the agreement caused a discomfort between the minorities in some states, especially the ones that have the most indigenous groups, like Chiapas, for example, that need to know what has been the relation. No, sorry, my bad. The ones that had the most indigenous group concentrations. In order to understand the mallife or the unrest between these groups, we need to know that what has been the relation between these groups, right? For example, during the 6-year term period of Presidente de la Madrid, the Mexican government has been looking for economic liberation, in which was promised foreign investment and increased national exploitation. One of the main reasons that the Mexican government didn't pay enough attention to the indigenous groups' needs, it was due to the NAFTA. There was priority in the needs. And for obvious reasons, the social malaise unrest resulted in armed movements from the ECTL, which represented a threat for safety for most Americans. This because the alignment with the wider anti-globalization, the ECTL and represented an anti-neoliberal social movement that could challenge the interests of the government. But this resulted in really a question that has to be asked, that has to be answered, which is, how should a modern state be configured in order to ensure the integration of cultural diversity and creation of real climate equality and equity? I think that how can we reach this point is to have a good proportion of indigenous representatives, which there might be more chances to change the material, systematic, and social conditions of indigenous groups. For example, in 2017, the number of legislators that identify as indigenous were only 5 out of 100 of the 500. That's really a small number of representatives, so we have to increase that. But we can ensure that many changes are being taken place since 1996.
I know that you mentioned this, but that it's not only for our rights, it's also for our right of protection, since most aggressions against indigenous people in Mexico come from drug trafficking. The government largely developed projects, private companies, and even paramedic groups and their association. And according to CGIL, there are cases that have made Mexico one of the countries with highest number of murder environmental defenders, and these environmental burdens are mostly from Oaxaca and are mostly indigenous people trying to fight back the territory of our land.
Well, taking into consideration all these roles we have, I think we need to get to an agreement. And for us in the indigenous communities, we think that the main thing that we need to focus is on respecting our lands and have access to quality education and healthcare. So there has to be some type of agreement or some type of insurance that the government has to provide these things for the communities that need to have. So it is an important thing to have in mind.
Well, I think that what you have been mentioning about the priorities and challenges, and obviously the conflicts that come with the mutual representation of indigenous groups and the needs of them, I think that it has to do with a miscommunication between both sides. For example, I think that the main problem that comes with it is that our priorities and challenges may be different, and that's why many conflicts or problems are not being addressed directly, because our sometimes the challenges of the government are not the same as the challenges of the property. For example, many indigenous groups have been uh, asked what are the main challenges that are facing right now. According to an interview in 2017 by Global American, which is a portal in the United States. And one of the top three were the access to service and quality, the prior consultation, indigenous rights, and racism and discrimination. I think that if we can address these problems, we can focus on this problem. We can have a mutual solution. One of the main reasons is because the Mexican government usually wants to focus on globalization and trades and the relationship between other countries, and we might not focus our attention on the problems with these minorities, which is bad and has been a problem. But I think the balance between these two problems, between these two concerns, could bring a common solution.
Additionally, the integration of resources and actors from the indigenous groups, the international organizations, financial institutions, and the government, we might be able to get more projects in which the implementation of education can be used in order to get or supply or satisfy more objectives, and in this way meeting all of the needs and the desires that every group wants to address, in this way having a more integrational option and achieving what we all desire to achieve.
And at the end of the day, I believe that we should be open for negotiation. The cultural heritage law, which established the right of indigenous population and communities to enter into contracts with third parties regarding the use, exploration, and/or commercialization of elements of their cultural heritage through a fair and equitable retribution and distribution. And it should be noted that between communities, people and companies abuse these contracting conditions. Therefore, mechanisms should have been established to safeguard against these circumstances.
Okay, we think that as indigenous communities, we can actually be okay with these terms. so we can create equality.
Great. We agree. The international organizations agree.
Okay, thank you. That was it for our evidence 1.